Introduction. Robert never thought his perfect life could unravel so quickly. At 45, he was a respected business owner, a devoted husband, and a man who believed in the sanctity of marriage. But that illusion shattered when he received a blunt text from his wife, Lisa. "I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 25-year-old boyfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha." The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. But Robert didn't break down. He didn't rage or beg. Instead, he acted. For months, he had sensed something was off. The late-night work meetings that didn't align with her expenses, the sudden password changes on her phone, and the way she started dressing younger. Unlike Lisa, Robert had been planning ahead. He had quietly protected his assets, documented every financial irregularity, and ensured that when she finally made her move, she wouldn't take everything with her. Lisa thought she had won. She had no idea she was walking straight into her own downfall. This is the story of betrayal, strategy, and ultimate triumph, because sometimes the best revenge is being prepared. Chapter 1. The text that changed everything. Robert was in his shop when it happened. A simple vibration from his phone, a message notification lighting up the screen. "I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 25-year-old boyfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. Ha ha ha." The words stared back at him, but he felt no shock, no panic, no heartbreak, only a cold, calculated awareness that the inevitable had arrived. Lisa, his wife of 12 years, had finally taken the leap into another man's arms. He continued helping Mrs. Carter, one of his regular customers, select a leather handbag. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't waver. If anything, he felt relieved. He had seen the signs for months. The way she suddenly became secretive about her phone, the excessive gym visits, the shopping sprees that didn't reflect in their joint expenses. 3 months ago, he had found a receipt for dinner for two at an expensive restaurant, on a night she claimed to be working late. That night, Robert took action. He opened a separate bank account at a different institution. A week later, Lisa had casually suggested combining all their finances for simplicity. He had agreed with a smile, all while quietly moving his savings elsewhere. Now, as he read her text, he knew the joint account she had emptied contained just enough to keep her from getting suspicious, only 2 months' worth of deposits. The rest, safely tucked away. His phone buzzed again. "Don't bother begging. Nathan and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later." Nathan, the new receptionist at her office. Robert had met him once at a company Christmas party, a cocky young man in his mid-20s, full of arrogance and self-importance. Lisa had laughed too hard at his jokes, touched his arm just a little too much. She thought she was trading up. Robert didn't respond. He simply called his lawyer, the same lawyer he had discreetly consulted 2 months ago. "It's time," he said. "She just made her move." The voice on the other end was calm and confident. "The papers are ready. Do you want her served in Miami?" Robert smirked. "No rush. Let her think she's won first." As he hung up, another text from Lisa arrived. "I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy." Robert actually laughed. My little shop? The successful business he built from scratch? The one that made more money than her mid-level corporate job? The one whose profits he had wisely kept separate from their joint finances? Lisa always underestimated him. Let her enjoy her moment of triumph. Tomorrow, she would wake up to a reality she never saw coming. The night before the storm, Robert closed up his boutique as usual, following the same routine he had for years. He didn't dwell on Lisa's betrayal. He had done his grieving months ago. Instead, he focused on what was next. That night, as he sat at the dining table of his house, the one he had inherited from his mother and never added Lisa's name to, he took a sip of whiskey and looked through their wedding album. Lisa looked so different back then. Younger, less bitter, less desperate. She had changed. But then again, so had he. He scrolled through the financial records he had meticulously collected over the past year. Every suspicious transaction, every unaccounted for dinner, every hotel stay Lisa had charged to their joint credit card, thinking she was being discreet. And now, thanks to her arrogance, she had handed him everything he needed. Another text from Lisa came through. By the way, I used our joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LOL. Robert smiled. He immediately called the credit card company. Yes, I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately. Of course, sir. Can you identify the charges? 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked today. Hotel charges at the Royal Palm. Also, I need to remove my wife as an authorized user. Do you have documentation of the fraud? Robert forwarded Lisa's text message. The representative's professional tone couldn't quite hide her satisfaction as she canceled the charges. Lisa and Nathan would arrive at the airport tomorrow to find their tickets invalidated. Their hotel reservation? Canceled. Lisa thought she had destroyed him. Tomorrow she would realize just how wrong she was. The next morning, chaos begins. The next morning, Robert woke up to a barrage of angry texts from Lisa. What the hell did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me. He silenced his phone and went about his morning as usual. Friday was always the busiest day at the boutique. A few hours later, his store phone rang. It was Lisa's mother, Barbara. Robert, dear, Lisa told us everything. She said you've been controlling and vindictive. She said you're causing trouble with her travel plans. Is this true? Robert put her on speaker while he arranged a new window display. Did she mention emptying our joint account and using our credit card to fund a trip with her boyfriend? Silence. Well, she said you left her no choice. Robert sighed. Barbara, I have her texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where she brags about taking my money? Or the one where she mocks my age? Another long pause. She did seem a bit cruel. Robert smiled to himself. I appreciate the call, Barbara, but I think it's best we end this conversation now. My lawyer has advised minimal contact with Lisa's family during the proceedings. Proceedings? Yes, Barbara. Divorce proceedings. Goodbye. As he hung up, he felt lighter than he had in years. Lisa thought she had won. She had no idea she had already lost. Robert had just finished arranging a new display in his boutique when his phone buzzed again. He knew it would be Lisa. He didn't even need to look. You think you're so smart, but I made copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half of that business is mine. Robert smirked. She was grasping at straws. He forwarded the text to his lawyer. Another mistake for our records. Let's make sure she learns how separate assets actually work. His lawyer replied almost immediately. Already on it. She can claim all she wants, but the business was started before the marriage, funded entirely by you, and kept legally separate. She has no claim. Lisa had always believed in winning through manipulation. What she didn't realize was that Robert had been playing the long game. Meanwhile, in Miami, Lisa's plan was unraveling faster than she had expected. At the airport, she and Nathan had confidently walked to the check-in counter, ready to start their new life together. The moment the agent scanned their tickets, the confusion began. I'm sorry, ma'am, but these tickets have been canceled. What? That's impossible. Run it again. The attendant frowned. Your card was declined. Do you have another form of payment? Lisa's stomach dropped. Nathan, standing beside her, shifted uncomfortably. Babe? Lisa pulled out her phone, frantically opening her banking app. Her jaw clenched. Balance, $0, 0 cents. Funds transferred, Robert Harrison. That bastard. And then it hit her. The credit card. She had used their joint card to book the trip, thinking she was taking the last of their money. But Robert had always been one step ahead. Ma'am, would you like to book new tickets? Lisa gritted her teeth. No! She grabbed Nathan's arm and stormed away. We'll just check into the hotel first. The second blow. No hotel, no escape. When they arrived at the Royal Palm Hotel, Lisa forced a smile at the receptionist, handing over her ID. The receptionist glanced at the screen, then back at Lisa. I'm sorry, ma'am, but your reservation was canceled this morning. Lisa's stomach twisted. What? Yes. And since the reservation was booked under a now canceled credit card, there is no refund. Nathan groaned beside her. You've got to be kidding me. Lisa was livid. This wasn't supposed to happen. Robert was supposed to be devastated. He was supposed to be begging her to come back. Instead, he had shut everything down. No money, no flight, no hotel. Lisa clenched her fists. This wasn't over. Back home, Robert was thriving. Robert spent the weekend living his life as usual. He worked at his boutique, went out for dinner with friends, and enjoyed the peaceful silence of his home. Lisa hadn't returned, yet, but her meltdown was inevitable. By Monday morning, the consequences of her actions were fully catching up to her. His lawyer called him bright and early. Morning, Robert. I have good news. The emergency hearing is scheduled for this afternoon. Given Lisa's financial misconduct and her own text messages, we're in a strong position to freeze all remaining assets and accelerate the divorce process. Robert grinned. Perfect. Let's end this once and for all. Lisa's last attempt at control. Lisa finally called Robert that afternoon. Robert, you heartless bastard, you ruined everything. Robert calmly sipped his coffee. Oh? I thought you were starting a new life with Nathan. You canceled my tickets. You shut down our bank account. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. Robert let the silence stretch before answering. Oh, Lisa, I didn't ruin your life. You did. She screamed in frustration. You won't get away with this. I'm still entitled to half of everything. Actually, you're entitled to exactly what the court decides. And considering you just admitted financial fraud over the phone, I'd be careful about what you demand. I have a meeting to get to, Lisa, but don't worry. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. Click. Robert hung up. Lisa had always underestimated him. Now she was paying the price for it. Courtroom karma. That afternoon, Robert walked into the courtroom confident and composed. Lisa, on the other hand, looked frazzled. Her new young boyfriend was noticeably absent. Robert's lawyer presented everything. Lisa's text messages admitting to financial misconduct, her attempt to steal the joint assets, her documented history of spending money on her affair. The judge didn't even hesitate. All joint assets are frozen. Mrs. Harrison, you are ordered to return the funds you removed from the joint account immediately. Lisa's mouth fell open. But the money is gone. The judge glared at her. Then I suggest you find a way to replace it. Lisa turned to Robert, her expression pleading. Robert, you wouldn't actually... Robert simply smiled. Enjoy Miami, Lisa. The gavel slammed down. Lisa had finally learned the lesson Robert had been waiting to teach her. Never underestimate the person you think you're leaving behind. Chapter 3. The Aftermath. Lisa left the courtroom a broken woman. The confidence she once had, the arrogance of believing she was the one in control, was gone. She had walked in thinking she could manipulate the system, believing that she would walk away with half of Robert's business, or at least some financial security. Instead, she left with nothing. Reality hits hard. Lisa's first call after the hearing was to Nathan. We need to figure something out. I don't have any money, and the court just froze my assets. There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line. Yeah. About that, Lisa. Her stomach dropped. She already knew what was coming. I don't think this is going to work out. I mean, I thought you had money. I didn't sign up to be someone's financial support. Lisa's face twisted in fury. Are you serious right now? Look, Lisa, you're a great woman, but this whole thing is messy. I'm not trying to deal with court stuff and money problems. I need someone who's got their life together, you know? She screamed into the phone as Nathan hung up. Her backup plan had just walked away. Now, she was truly alone. Meanwhile, Robert was thriving. Robert had expected Lisa to lash out after the hearing. Maybe she would call him. Maybe she would beg for help. But he didn't care. He had moved on before she even knew she had lost. His boutique was thriving. The story of his divorce had become local gossip, but not in a way that painted him as a victim. Instead, it had turned him into a symbol of resilience. Customers loved his story. Women came in buying luxury items just to support him. "We've all been there, honey," one customer said while purchasing 3 designer handbags. "Men usually do this to women. I'm glad to see the tables turn for once." Robert had never been more successful. He had expanded his business to a second location, hired new employees, and was even working on launching an online store. Meanwhile, Lisa was desperate and losing everything. Lisa's life falls apart. Without money, without a partner, and without a place to stay, Lisa was forced to move back in with her parents. Her mother, a woman who had always doted on her, was furious. "You left your husband for a boy? And now you expect us to take care of you?" Lisa tried to argue, but there was nothing left to say. She had played her game and lost. Her social media, once filled with pictures of luxury vacations, shopping sprees, and love with Nathan, was now silent. Friends stopped answering her calls. She had burned too many bridges. And Robert? Robert was doing better than ever. The final humiliation. A few weeks later, Lisa made one last, desperate attempt to fix things. She showed up at Robert's boutique. She stood in front of the store, hesitating, before finally stepping inside. Robert was behind the counter, helping a customer. When he saw her, he didn't react. "Lisa." She swallowed hard. "Robert, can we talk?" He finished wrapping a purchase before responding. "About what?" Lisa bit her lip. "Everything. I made a mistake." Robert leaned back against the counter. "Which part? Leaving? Stealing our money? Sleeping with a guy half your age? Or assuming I was stupid enough to let you take my business?" Lisa winced at every word. "I thought I wanted something different. I got caught up in the excitement. I thought Nathan really cared about me. But..." She paused, looking around the boutique. "You're doing really well." Robert smiled. "I am." Lisa took a deep breath. Maybe we can start over." For the first time since their divorce, Robert laughed. Not bitterly, not angrily, but genuinely. "Lisa, you don't actually think I'd take you back, do you?" Lisa's face fell. You left. You humiliated me. You tried to destroy everything I built." Robert's voice was calm, but there was an edge of steel to it. "Now you're standing in my store, one you thought I couldn't run without you, asking me to pretend none of that happened?" Lisa looked down. "I have nowhere else to go." Robert shrugged. "Not my problem." He turned his attention back to a waiting customer. Lisa stood there for a moment, but there was nothing left to say. She had lost. And Robert? He had won. Chapter 4. The best revenge moving forward, not looking back. It had been nearly 2 years since Lisa walked out of Robert's life, convinced she was trading a mundane marriage for a thrilling new beginning. Robert, however, had thrived in ways she could never have imagined. His small boutique had expanded into a successful chain, with 3 thriving locations and a 4th set to open. Local business magazines had written about him, hailing him as an entrepreneur who turned heartbreak into an empire. He was being invited to speak at business conferences, sharing how he took control of his own future. "My ex-wife thought she was leaving me behind," he joked at one event. "Instead, she pushed me forward." The audience laughed, applauding his resilience. For Robert, success had become the best revenge. He no longer thought about Lisa. Why would he? She was part of his past, and he was far too focused on his future. Lisa's life takes a dark turn. Lisa, on the other hand, hadn't landed where she expected. Her fairy tale fell apart quickly. After just a few months, Nathan had grown tired of her. He moved on to someone younger, fresher, leaving Lisa stranded in a small apartment she could barely afford. Her once lavish lifestyle had been replaced by long hours at a low-paying job and a dwindling social circle. Men her age avoided her. Younger men weren't interested in a woman with no money and no status. She was no longer the glamorous wife of a successful businessman. Now, she was just another woman who made a bad choice. Her name had become a cautionary tale among former friends. And her finances? A disaster. Without Robert's steady financial responsibility, she had maxed out her credit cards, fallen behind on rent, and was one emergency away from disaster. An unexpected visit. One evening, as Robert was finalizing details for his next boutique opening, a knock came at his office door. To his surprise, it was Lisa's mother. She looked tired, as if Lisa's mistakes had aged her. "Robert, I know I have no right to ask anything from you, but Lisa," she sighed, shaking her head. "She's in trouble." Robert leaned back in his chair, studying the woman who had once defended her daughter blindly. "Not my problem." Lisa's mother nodded. "I know, but she talks about you. A lot. She knows she made a mistake, and she's lost." Robert exhaled, tapping his fingers on his desk. "She walked away, remember? She thought she was walking toward something better." Lisa's mother gave him a sad smile. "She realizes now that she had everything she wanted, and threw it away." Robert was silent for a long moment. Then he stood. "I appreciate you coming here, but Lisa's choices aren't my responsibility." Lisa's mother sighed, but didn't argue. As she turned to leave, she gave him one last look. "You were the best thing that ever happened to her. She knows that now, but it's too late." Then she was gone. Robert didn't feel anger or satisfaction, just relief. Lisa had finally realized the truth, but by then it no longer mattered. The grand opening. A full-circle moment. On the night of his fourth boutique's grand opening, the atmosphere was electric. A crowd of business leaders, fashion designers, and longtime customers filled the store, celebrating his latest achievement. Robert stood in front of the crowd, microphone in hand, ready to give his speech. 5 years ago, I was in the middle of a divorce I never saw coming. My ex thought she was taking my future with her when she left. But instead, she gave me the freedom to create something better than I ever imagined." The crowd cheered. He smiled, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. For the first time, he truly understood. Lisa had done him a favor. She had tried to break him, but instead, she had set him free. A ghost from the past. As Robert stepped down from the stage, shaking hands and thanking guests, he saw her, Lisa. Standing in the back, half hidden by the crowd. Her once bright confidence was gone, replaced by something else. She looked smaller, as if the weight of her own mistakes had finally settled on her shoulders. She didn't approach, she didn't speak, she just watched. And after a long moment, she turned and walked away. Robert felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, no nostalgia, just peace. He had won this battle long ago, and Lisa, she was just a lesson learned. The final thought. That night, as he locked up the boutique, Robert took one last look at the celebration banner. Success wasn't just about wealth or expansion. It was about moving forward, stronger, smarter, and unbreakable. Lisa had tried to erase him from her life, but in doing so, she had made him unstoppable. And now she was just someone he used to know. Robert smiled, knowing that his story was just beginning. And this time, he was the only author. Chapter 5. The Final Lesson. 6 months later, a different kind of reunion. It had been 6 months since Robert last saw Lisa at his grand opening. Life had only improved for him since then. His boutique chain was thriving, his name was well respected in the business community, and he had finally found peace. Lisa, however, had continued her downward spiral. Through mutual acquaintances, he heard she had lost her job. Her savings were running low, and she had moved into a small, run-down apartment after Nathan left her. She had gone from luxury to survival mode in just a few months. But Robert? He had gained so much more. Then, one afternoon, as he was finalizing plans for his newest store expansion, his assistant walked into his office, looking uncomfortable. Robert, there's someone here to see you." "Who?" She hesitated. "It's Lisa." Robert didn't react. He had known this day would come, and he was ready for it. A desperate request. Lisa walked in slowly, as if she already knew what the answer would be before she even asked. She looked tired, different. Her once flawless makeup and expensive wardrobe were replaced with something far more modest. For the first time in his life, Robert saw her as vulnerable, unsure. "Robert," she started, her voice softer than he remembered. "Can we talk?" Robert gestured for her to sit, keeping his expression neutral. "What's on your mind?" She hesitated, then sighed. "I made a mistake." Robert raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. "I thought I wanted something more. Something exciting." Her voice cracked. "But it was a lie. Nathan was a lie. He left me as soon as things got hard." Robert leaned back, watching her carefully. "I see." Lisa took a deep breath as if preparing for the most difficult part. "I need help, Robert." There it was, the real reason she was here. "I lost my job. My lease is up next month and I don't have anywhere to go." She looked up at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "Maybe we could try again? Start over?" Robert let the silence stretch between them. "Lisa." She leaned forward slightly, clutching onto that one thread of possibility. But then he shook his head. "No." Lisa blinked, caught off guard. "But no, Lisa." His voice was calm but firm. "I moved on. You made your choice, and I made mine." Lisa's expression crumbled. I thought you still cared." Robert tilted his head. "I do care, Lisa. I care enough to let you figure this out on your own." She stared at him, realization dawning. "You really won't help me?" "No." Lisa swallowed hard, as if she had never considered this outcome. Then she nodded slowly, standing up. "I understand." She turned toward the door but hesitated one last time. "Robert, I'm sorry." This time he believed her, but that didn't change anything. "Goodbye, Lisa." And with that, she walked away for the last time. The final closure. Robert sat in silence for a long time after Lisa left. Not because he was sad, not because he regretted his choice, but because he felt completely, finally free. Lisa had been a lesson, a painful one, yes, but one he had learned well. 1 year later, the ultimate victory. A full year had passed since Lisa's visit. And Robert? His business was bigger than ever. His personal life happier than he ever imagined. His boutique chain expanded to 6 locations, and he had begun mentoring young entrepreneurs. His name was respected. His future was limitless. At a business gala one evening, a reporter approached him with a knowing smile. "Robert, your story has inspired a lot of people. If you could sum up what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?" Robert thought for a moment, then smiled. "The best revenge is success." And he meant it. Final thought. Lisa had once mocked his business, dismissed it as a little shop. Now that little shop had turned into a thriving empire. And Lisa? She was just a chapter in his past. Robert had won, not by getting even, but by getting better. And that was the greatest victory of all. That was the end of the story. Robert's journey from betrayal to success, proving that revenge isn't about getting even, but about rising above. But if you're asking for a continuation beyond this, I'd be happy to explore what happens next. Do you want an epilogue showing Robert's life years later? Or maybe a twist where Lisa makes one final attempt to come back? Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Life lessons from betrayal and resilience in 2025. In a world that constantly evolves, self-reliance and foresight remain invaluable. Robert's story teaches us that trust is precious, but preparation is power. In 2025, where financial independence and emotional resilience are more critical than ever, his experience serves as a reminder that protecting oneself isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. Marriage or any long-term partnership should be built on mutual respect and transparency. But life can take unexpected turns. Keeping personal and financial safeguards in place ensures that betrayal doesn't mean devastation. Whether in relationships or business, having a plan, staying observant, and trusting your instincts can make all the difference. Lastly, success is the ultimate response to those who underestimate us. Instead of seeking revenge, focus on growth, self-worth, and building something lasting. True triumph isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were always capable of more than they ever